Hi, Stephen here from Fated Crossings. I'd like to discuss the planet in detriment. We often hear about a planet being in detriment. So first of all, how do we identify a planet that's in detriment? The key to this is understanding some basic preliminaries. The detriment of a planet is related to its rulership. So the basic formula is the sign 7 signs away. The sign directly across from the planet's rulership is the place of its detriment. So in order for you to understand that, then you have to think about signs a little differently than we might be accustomed to thinking about them. We're used to thinking about signs in terms of personality. So if someone's sun is in Capricorn, then we would say something about Capricorn. If someone's sun is in Leo, then we would say something about their personality having to do with Leo. But in traditional astrology, the signs were less about personality types and more about being staging grounds for planetary quality and effectiveness. So first of all, we have to understand which planet rules which sign. Okay, and this is the larger category of essential dignities. We may have heard this term before, essential dignities. The essential dignities, a planet ruling this sign or being in detriment in this other sign, doesn't have anything to do with something being essential in the sense of important. The essential dignities have to do with the essence of the planet. That's what makes these powers essential. They have to do with the essence of the planet. So when we say that the sun rules Leo, then what we mean is that when the sun is in Leo, 100% of its solar essence is able to stream forth. When Saturn is in Capricorn, he rules that sign, and so 100% of Saturn's essence, which is to produce laboriousness and restriction and responsibility and severity, 100% of that Saturnian essence gushes forth. So when a planet is posited 7 signs away from the planet, from the sign that it rules, then its essence is corrupted. And it can't be itself. It's like the planet is a little bit inebriated, a little bit drunk. And what we know about drunk people is that they have no effectiveness. They have no functionality. They can't function. They can't drive a car. Their speech is slurred. They are not their normal selves. And so it is when a planet is in the sign of its detriment. So first of all, a brief refresher. Saturn rules Aquarius and Capricorn both. Therefore, the opposite signs are the place of Saturn's detriment. Cancer and Leo. When Saturn is in Cancer or in Leo, he is in detriment. He's drunk. He cannot be his normal Saturnian self. He cannot produce responsibility or effective labor, for that matter. Jupiter. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces. And therefore, Jupiter is in detriment when he is in Gemini or Virgo, because these signs are 7 signs away. They are opposite from Sagittarius and Pisces. Mars rules Scorpio and Aries. Therefore, he is in detriment. He's drunk, inebriated, ineffective when he is in Libra and Taurus. The sun rules Leo. Therefore, Aquarius is the sign of the sun's detriment. When the sun is in Aquarius, it cannot be its essential solar self. Venus rules Taurus and Libra. Therefore, she is in detriment in the signs of Scorpio and Aries. She's drunk there, corrupted. That was the terminology they used to use in the Middle Ages. She's corrupted. Instead of being the pure Venus that she could be in Taurus or Libra, her nature, her essence is somehow knocked off of its normal range and becomes corrupted. Mercury rules Virgo and Gemini. Therefore, he is in detriment in the signs of Jupiter, Sagittarius, and Pisces. The moon rules Cancer, and therefore she is in detriment in Capricorn. I want to point out that detriment is a distinct concept from fall. I'll get into fall in another video. But what I really want to point out about detriment is that not only is the essence of the planet in detriment corrupted, but the language that the ancient astrologers used to describe detriment almost always had to do with things falling apart, disintegrating. So the planet that is in detriment literally cannot exist. It falls apart. It falls to pieces. All of the words describing detriment in the past had to do with disintegration, annihilation. And that is the primary thing to keep in mind when we consider what detriment means. And we apply this to houses. Now, you can still use a planet in detriment for psychological astrology. But when it comes to practical, judicial, predictive astrology, then whatever house the detrimented planet is in is going to experience difficulties. The topics of that house are going to have a hard time just basically existing. They might be produced for a little while, but they will definitely eventually fall apart. And it's important to know this in advance, because knowing this in advance, we can adopt a strategy either to redefine what our idea of happiness is with respect to that house, or we can perhaps be stubborn about it. I would definitely encourage this attitude, being stubborn about it and saying, no, I'm not going to let it fall apart. Or if the house topics do fall apart, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure they fall apart in a good way, in the best way possible for me. And I do encourage that attitude. But the thing to know is that whatever house a detrimented planet falls in is going to harm the topics of that house. The planet may produce those topics. It may produce those house matters. But eventually they will experience problems, or they will be somehow countercultural or somehow controversial. They will definitely cause a problem somehow, some way, shape, or form. And the best we can hope for is to mature into this and to take measures, to take protective measures when it comes to those house topics. So, for example, if you've got a bad Saturn in Cancer or Leo in the second house, then that is promising that at least once in your life there will be a big financial crisis, and probably multiple times. And it is important for the person to know this. If you have Jupiter in detriment in the fifth, then your children definitely will experience some kind of hardship, some kind of misfortune, some kind of difficulty getting things going in life. And it's advantageous for you to know this in advance. Sadly, this is a very fate-based thing, and it's not really possible to dodge it. It's one of those situations where the astrologer can make a prediction and, then say, hey, do the best you can about it, but, let's just wait and see what happens. So, if you have a planet in detriment, which is quite likely, most of us do, a lot of us do, then, don't let it freak you out, but just review your life specifically as it pertains to that house matter where the detrimented planet is, and see how or whether things have a tendency of just disintegrating or sort of being ground away into nothingness, disappearing and becoming something else. And again, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. A little bit of destruction can be good for us in life, believe it or not. Sometimes better things can arise from the ashes of the chaos. That certainly can happen. And at any rate, your chart says that you can handle it, so it's okay. But this is always something that you can look out for. When you see the detrimented planet in somebody's chart, then ask the person how their experience of that house topic has been like. And most of the time, probably 85, maybe even to 92, 93% of the time, you'll hear a sob story with relation to that. So this is just something to think about, something to ponder. It's definitely not your feel-good astrology. It can get kind of gruesome. And again, it's not psychological astrology at all. This is more practical in its scope. In another video, some future video, I might get into what it means for a planet to be in fall, because as I mentioned, these are separate categories completely, and they should not be confused. And this concept has applications in every branch of astrology. The astrology dealing with the government, dealing with prices, horary astrology, asking a question. For example, if you do a horary question and the ruler of the ascendant is in detriment, then that is leaning heavily towards a no or negative answer. Some of the old school astrologers, back a bajillion years ago, they compared the planet in detriment as describing someone who was against himself somehow, because the planet in the sign where it is detrimented is forced to gaze upon the sign that it rules. I mean, imagine that situation. Here you own this big, beautiful villa, and you're forced to sort of look at that from across the river in an area where you're very uncomfortable. What kind of frustration would that produce? Quite a bit. And that's what it boils down to. The planet in detriment is not comfortable with the substance given up to it. Saturn, for example, is not comfortable with the substance of Cancer, which is the domicile of the moon. These are contrary principles. The lunar principle and the Saturnian principle are contrary principles. So when Saturn is in the domicile of the moon, which is Cancer, then he's forced to work with a substance that has no similitude to what he's used to and what he desires. And we can think about this in other ways as well. We can think about it in terms of the elements, in terms of elemental qualities. Saturn is very cold and dry. So when he's in Cancer, his dryness gets assaulted by the wetness of Cancer. And so Saturn, who likes things to be rigidly categorized, now has to deal with this welter of psychic impressions, and he doesn't know how to handle it. So we can think of the concept of detriment in terms of the elements as well. So that's what I have to say about it for now. If you want to reach out to me, please feel free to send me a message at steven@fatedcrossings.com. Thank you.